So all of those answers were really good. Okay, and they sort of set us up for the next chapter. So we're just going to start on the first part of the lecture notes. But this is all really important because the common thread here is that we are responsible. But I can guarantee you, when you start to apply, because it's very easy to say you're responsible for your happiness, it's very hard to say you're responsible for your suffering. And this is why no one chose the third question. And I knew no one would. No one's going to say, I had my heart broken and I was responsible for it. And I'm sure in this room that there were people who looked at that and said, I don't want to talk about that because someone broke my heart. Right? Someone treated me poorly. Someone didn't treat me right. Someone didn't love me the way I wanted to. Someone left me when I didn't want them to leave me. And actually, I'll just read a couple of sentences. This is from a book called The Sayings of the Buddha, the Dhammapada. And it's right at the very beginning. And I wasn't planning on reading this, but I quickly will. And it says, he abused me, attacked me, defeated me, robbed me. For those carrying on like this, hatred does not end. She abused me, attacked me, defeated me, robbed me. For those not carrying on like this, hatred ends. Hatred never ends through hatred. By non-hate alone does it end. This is an ancient truth. Many do not realize that we here must die. For those who realize this, quarrels end. And my point is that there's nothing longer than saying I love you and the gap between the person saying I love you back. There's nothing longer than you reaching for a person's hand and them not reaching for yours. So who among us has an unwanting love? Who among us expresses love unconditionally? Our normal practice is we love with the expectation of return. Our normal practice is when we get something good, we want more of it. And we attach our desires to things, to people, to relationships. And therefore we make our happiness external to ourselves. Because we always grow up feeling like we're complete and incomplete. And what Buddhism teaches us is that we're already complete. And that because of our delusions and because of our attachments, we simply don't see it. So, we're starting in the lecture notes now. We've only got 10 minutes, so I'll just touch upon a couple of things. Hopefully get some food for thought. And this is why the beginning of the lecture notes, it starts to say, it's very confusing at first to start a practice of the Eightfold Path. Because we start to think of all the things that make us conventionally happy. All the things that we believe we can lay our hand on and rest. We want security. We want stability. We want permanence. We want commitment. We want reliability, most of all. And the way the world works is everything's changing. Everything subject to arising is subject to cessation. And even ourselves are a process more than a thing. Remember we talked about that? So by truly living in the moment, by being in relation to but not clinging to, by enjoying but not encasing in our desires, that's when we can start to apply this practice. And when we do start to apply it, we fall back into old habits. So for example, maybe you've had a habit that's hard to break. The insight alone is not enough. So Anybody ever smoke? Okay. When you were smoking, did you realize it was the wrong thing to do? Yeah. You can rationalize it, but you know it's not good for you, right? So how do you quit? So you decide, I'm going to quit. And then you apply yourself, and you apply yourself, and you apply yourself. And you renounce smoking in your life. You say, I'm not a smoker anymore. But only after, time and time and time again, the habit rising, you pull into the same store to buy cigarettes, even without thinking about it. You reach for a pack that's not there. Because you want that happiness, that momentary happiness of that cigarette after dinner. Oh, right? You're seeking that which brought you happiness before. You are following on the thoughts that gave you the happiness that was there. And this is what renunciation is about. And renunciation is a very scary word in religion, right? I'm going to renounce this, I'm going to renounce that. As it says here in bold, third paragraph down, renunciation is very simply knowing what practices to pick up and knowing what practices to put down. We're putting down the practices that don't give us unshakable contentment. And the things that do give us unshakable contentment, like selflessness, like generosity, like empathy, like losing yourself and allowing yourself to enjoy the moment without judgment. These are the practices that we pick up. But time and time again, all of these things that brought us happiness before, trying to put down what made you happy is very, very hard to do. And that doesn't mean that if you enjoy motorcycling, that to become a Buddhist you stopped being a motorcyclist. There's actually a book, Zen in the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. And for those of us who are into motorcycles, you may have read the book. But it means that as you go through life, you are choosing which path you're following. Are you choosing the path of attachment and suffering, or are you choosing the path of generosity and empathy and liberation? We're asking you to be conscious. The Buddha is saying, if you're going to be responsible for your happiness and suffering, then suck it up, buddy, and get to work. That's what the Buddha is saying. And if you say, I'd rather not, because I got, this really cool thing, this concert or this Club Med vacation that I'm going on, and after that, I'll practice renunciation. Go on the vacation if it's wise and it's prudent and it doesn't harm anybody. But believe me, after 2 weeks in Club Med, you'll be screaming to come home because it's never enough. Having said all of that, I think one thing I'd really like you to focus on is, and in the meditation notes, the Eightfold Path is broken up into the 3 trainings. And the 3 trainings are listed in order. However, if we take one of them away, it's not a right practice. So, for example, on the lecture notes on the second page, it shows the 3 trainings, and it shows that, if we have initial wisdom to understand there's a better way to live, that maybe being the author of joy is being better than the audience of joy. And then we put that into action with an ethical life. We stop doing the things. If we really believe, for example, that family is important and your happiness is important, then take the time to sit in the garden. Take the time to tell your husband or your wife that you love them. Right? Actually put it in. Because if you believe one thing and you're acting in a different way, are you ever going to live in harmony? Are you ever going to be able to live in the moment? And from that, you quiet your mind. You get a little bit of contentment. And it allows you to focus. And a meditation practice we'll talk about next week really gives you the depth of direct experience. And from that level of concentration and mindfulness, and from how we act in the world and how we apply wisdom, guess what? We get more wisdom. And wisdom from experience is real wisdom. And we'll talk about that more and more next week. So I would encourage you, if you came this week, please come next week, because this rah-rah talk has to be applied. So we're going to actually talk about the Eightfold Path. And I think the way you approach the Eightfold Path is just as important as the Eightfold Path itself. So that's why we've taken a whole class to talk about the Eightfold Path, and we haven't talked about one of the Eightfold Paths yet. Not directly, anyway. So I thank you. Zeus, a pleasure as always. Fantastic. Wonderful, good work. Go out this week and have a great time, and do try and take a look at the habits that cause you happiness, and try and do it without attachment. Just try that. When you meet someone, make eye contact. Okay? And if you are suffering, if your heart is broken, find out how much attachment is part of that. Find out about, if someone's disappointing you, find out how much of that is your expectations. Okay? So thank you so much. I really appreciate your attention. Have a great week.